Wow, can you imagine making $1 million in compensation every year, $1 million salary and other compensation? Well, if you can, please donate to my organization. We could really use your help. But for the rest of us, for the rest of us, can you imagine not only making that kind of money, but making that kind of money working for a nonprofit organization, an organization that is going out there and asking you and I to donate, a small amount of our pay to help their cause. Meanwhile, they're making such a huge salary. I want to alert you to our list on our website at CharityWatch.org. Come to our website. You can actually see our list of nonprofit executives and other staff members who make $1 million or more in compensation per year from their nonprofits. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't provide some context here for compensation packages, nonprofit compensation packages. There are very few people in this world and in this country who could afford to work for free for a charity or for anyone else. You'd have to be really independently wealthy. And somebody like that probably isn't going to work 40 or 50 hours a week doing nonprofit work for nothing. So the nonprofit sector provides an enormous amount of help and assistance and forwards a lot of really important causes that if it relied on only volunteers, the work just wouldn't be able to get done. There just wouldn't be enough independently wealthy people who could work full time for free to get all of this work done. So you need to understand that you do have to think about nonprofit compensation in a reasonable way. There's another thing to think about, which is that some people think that all salaries are overhead. That's not true. And this is especially relevant because there is a new movie out, and there has been some other articles and things floating around published by nonprofit trade associations that are in the pockets of charities and industry interests, suggesting that donors should ignore overhead because, of course, you have to pay people. Like I just said, you have to pay people to do this work. Well, guess what? It's a very dishonest argument because a lot of charity salaries are already allocated to a charity's program expenses in their financial reporting. So let me give you just a very short tutorial. When a charity has a particular expense like salaries, which is a pretty large expense for most charities, they report the total that they spent on salaries and compensation, other compensation, and then among that of that total, they allocate it by function, meaning they say, okay, if a particular person received a salary of $50,000, for example, what percentage of their time did that employee spend on programs, on management functions, and on fundraising? And then you take that $50,000 and you would allocate whatever amount of money was represented by the amount of time they spent on each function, right? So when you are looking at program percentages of charities, they do include some salaries and compensation packages, which is why it makes it especially dishonest when trade associations imply that salaries are all overhead. They are not, and that's not how they're reported in financial statements of 990 tax filings or of audited financial statements. So something to note. Here's the other thing, a third point before I go. You know, charities do compete with the private sector for qualified employees. And to get someone who's highly qualified to do a job effectively, especially if that particular job requires special expertise, financial expertise, medical expertise, an advanced degree that someone spent many years and possibly six figures, to get, right? And, you can't pay somebody like that, somebody who's running like an international aid organization and they're responsible for managing micro lending and all kinds of complex transactions and finances. You can't pay somebody like that typically $50,000 a year to get someone who would be qualified for a position like that. Medical doctors, if they're in charge of running an entire hospital, say they left the medical practice and now they're doing more administration, you're not going to be able to pay somebody like that who maybe used to make a couple $1,000,000 a year while they were a surgeon, for example, maybe more. You can't pay somebody like that 50 grand to run a nonprofit hospital, and nor would someone who were willing to accept that much money probably be qualified to do it. Now, on the other end of things, If somebody is running a veterans organization and all they do is pay a professional fundraising company to send out blankets of direct mail or telemarketing calls all over the country, and the person's not really doing much, that person probably doesn't deserve to make, $180,000 a year. They're not really doing much, right? They're just managing a few vendors, probably not spending that much time on it. So you need to kind of understand what is the education, the skills, the experience level that's needed for a particular job. What's the market rate for that job? And did the board of directors, and this is something you can find in the tax filings, did the board of directors do any kind of research to try to understand, what someone's salary should be, what should be fixed at, especially for that top position at any charity. So please come to our site at CharityWatch.org. You can find that list of nonprofit executives and other staff members who make $1 million or more in compensation at nonprofits. It's really interesting. There are some environmental groups on there, a gun rights group on there, many, many medical charities on there. How much salary is too much? Think about the factors that I've mentioned in this video, but ultimately you as a donor, you need to decide. If you're an elderly person retired on a very fixed income and you don't have a lot of savings, maybe it isn't the best use of your money, right? To donate to a gigantic nonprofit hospital where they're paying, more than one executive over $1 million a year. Can you really afford it? Maybe it would be better to donate small amounts of money in your own community, or to the local cat shelter, or to someone in your community who might need some help with their bills, right? There are many, many ways to give. And you as a donor need to decide what feels right to you, what's most appropriate to you. The main function of Charity Watch is not to tell you who to donate to, what organizations to support. Our function is to try to help you give wisely. And one of the things that you can do to give wisely is come to our website at CharityWatch.org, view our top rated charities, and that should give you a good starting point of understanding which organizations will use your donation efficiently and effectively, while also having good governance and being transparent with the public and also with Charity Watch. I hope this was helpful. My name is Laurie Styron. I am the CEO and Executive Director of Charity Watch. Thanks, everyone.